we're next talking about jungle drum and bass, an intergenerational and inclusive scene. Discuss. And so I suppose the intergenerational part is there kind of ageism within the scene? Who thinks there is ageism in the drum and bass scene or not?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Well, first of all, I wanted to ask you, Bryan, as a foundational DJ, one of the pioneers, one of the originators, when you go to the rave, are you treated with the respect that you deserve, or do you sometimes get some funny looks as an older person?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, because first I just want to say shout out to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here amongst all you great music lovers. And we're all here on the same path, man. And yeah, I'm just honored to be here. So yeah, about the music and my age, because I'm straight up, I'm 60 years old. And yeah, I got to remind myself sometimes as well, because being around young people make you feel younger than you really think, than you are. So I got to remind myself, but going out week in, week out, I just get pure love of young people. Just pure love and pure respect as well. You get what I'm saying? There's never been a thing where people think, oh, old boy or whatever, or you get what I'm saying, your type, whatever I get. Maybe because it's me and people know what I'm about, but I always get maximum respect. And when I go out as well, like the people that are coming to my parties that I'm seeing in front of me, they're young kids. They got like, some of them like, not even older than the label. I mean, lately we've been doing some V Classics nights, you get what I'm saying? And like, you know, Frost would tell you, we've been like, it's all young kids in the front of them, they loving, wanting to know about the history, even got the tattoos as well. And like, you know, these kids, they weren't even born when V was started. So I'm not feeling that. I probably feel that more outside of the scene, where I think probably the youngest don't have that much respect sometimes for the elders, as we did when we were younger. We had maximum respect for elder people. But when I'm in the scene, it's just one togetherness. That's what I'm seeing.
What, can you expand on what you mean about when you were younger and you had respect for the older
Well,
people?
it was just natural, just in general, just in life, you know what I mean? You respected your elders. And there's a feeling now outside of the scene, I'm not talking within the scene, but just day to day, generally, on the streets or whatever, I don't see, I'm not talking about all the youngers, but I don't see that respect as much for elder people.
Because I've had that in house and techno things, people coming up to me and saying, oh, it's really nice to see people like you here, meaning kind of an older person. But I've never had that in an drum and bass rave.
No, never. You won't get that in drum and bass. I think people are just like ready to embrace all colours, all ages, all sexualities, everything now. Things have changed so much, you get what I'm saying? And drum and bass has embraced all the changes, you get what I'm saying? And so when you go out, you know, anything can happen, and you know, we're there to embrace everything. And that's the beauty of the music as well, you get what I'm saying? There's no age limit. Like from the DJs, you know, young DJs to the DJs like myself, we're all embracing together. On my label, you get what I'm saying? It's a mixture of young and older artists, and it's just about the music.
Cool. Keir, I want to ask you more or less the same question. As a slightly older person still going to lots of events, do you get anyone asking you what you're doing here or something like that?
I've never had what you're doing here, mate. No, I never see any of that, and I think the whole sort of thread of this conversation is the inclusivity of the whole jungle drum and bass thing. So, I mean, when I'm at a show, it's generally one of our Shogun shows or an Elevate show or whatever we're putting on. So I'm there in a kind of work capacity more than anything else. I'm not out there like in the middle of the dance floor usually. So I guess I'm looking at it from a different perspective. But certainly you see all different types of ages, and that whole thing about having this inclusive scene that's accepting of everybody is, you know, I see that entirely. So no, I've never been said, "What are you doing here, you old man? You don't, you know, you shouldn't be here."
Can I just interject, sorry, very quickly? I took my 67-year-old mum to hospitality on the beach this year, and she absolutely loved it. And do you know what? Everyone was so welcoming, so lovely. There's not many places that I could have taken my... Like, I left her on her own on the dance floor in the middle of a rave, and the people were just so friendly, so kind, like coming up to her, making sure she was... I mean, she doesn't look 67, but yeah, it's... I would take her to lots of raves, but I just... Yeah, there's something special about the people of drum bass, and she hadn't really been to many raves before. She hasn't really been to many festivals. And she was gushing when she came home. She's like, everyone's just so friendly, so inquisitive, asking questions, asking what you're doing there, asking how long you've been to the music, asking who your favourite artists are. Everyone's just so passionate about it. And just, yeah, from her, someone that hasn't grown up with the music, I haven't got into it through her at all in the slightest. She was just, yeah, really blown away by it.
Like Sun and Bass, I don't know if most of you guys been to Sun and Bass, but that's like a festival where you see, like, from babies to granddads. I mean, people bring their dads, their mums to Sun and Bass. You know, I know my boy Frosty brought all his kids, families, everything. So, and everyone just fits in. So, you know, yeah, you know, there's there's not a stigma with age at all. I've never seen it. I've never felt it or nothing. Nah.
Wicked. In terms of inclusivity, then, Charlie, I wanted to ask you because, like, DJ Rap and Chemistry and Storm in the 90s were like pioneering women DJs in a scene that was largely male. When you yourself sort of like entered the scene as DJ, did you feel like it was perhaps easier than it might have been in the 90s for you, and or you know, having because you'd had people paving the way for you as a woman?
It's hard to know, isn't it? Because obviously I wasn't really raving in the 90s, so I just still felt, because there weren't really many women doing it, that it still felt obviously not as difficult, but it's still, I didn't know any other women that were doing it at the time. And obviously I knew of you guys, but I'd never met you. I didn't know, so I couldn't even, like, and we didn't have social media back then when I was starting out. Like, I've been doing this 13 years now, so it kind of started, but people weren't integrating on social media then like they are now, so you couldn't DM someone and just chat to them. So yeah, it did when I started back then, and I started on D&B TV, so that was, yeah. So I was a presenter when I started, and I wasn't really DJing back then. I was kind of like the host, and I kind of felt like that was my space. And when I used to go into the studio, I don't know, like, yeah, I didn't really feel like I was allowed to do that at that point. It wasn't until I got my own decks at home and just started clanging away in my bedroom on CDs for hours on end that I got the confidence to actually eventually play out one day. But yeah, it was a very different landscape then to what it is now. And I'm sure it was even harder when you guys started because you were the first. But yeah, it's changed. It's changed a lot.
For the better. Similar question to Ruth and Alicat. Did you feel like you were sort of entering into a boys' club, or were you accepted straight away?
Yeah, I think it did feel like a bit of a boys' club, and I do think that there is like a different feeling between like the culture and the rave and like the industry and where you sit when you get into this professionally. And I think when you are in that space that like Charlie and Bryan and Keir are like talking about, where you're like with ravers and with the community, it's incredible, and it's so accepting, and it's so kind of like open and experimental. And then I think when you start getting into a kind of more professional space, there is a difference between, this is speaking from my own experience, you know, between male and female artists, for instance, you know, like the ageism, I do feel like that is still there. Differences between like pressure on what you look like, you know, I do think that is still very much there, and that doesn't seem to be the feeling that you get from the culture, doesn't seem to be translating up a level into the more kind of like commercial industry spaces, which you end up navigating a lot as an artist. You actually sometimes spend more time navigating and interacting on an industry level than you do with fans, and the fan culture is magic and should be protected at all costs. And doesn't seem to have kind of changed. That positivity is still there, but I think somehow it needs to kind of come back into the industry level.
I think it was interesting when you asked about the ageism thing. We both kind of nodded. Rap and Daisy nodded as well. Because I think for women it's different. Yes. And I started...
How is it different then?
Well, okay, just to give you a little backstory, because probably not everybody knows who I am. My name's Alley Cat, and I started DJing in 1997 in San Francisco, which both of you I saw back in the 90s before I ended up here 25 years ago. But the scene there was very diverse, both racially, but also there was loads of women running things, if you know Eclectic, for example. But there was loads of us, and I was part of a collective called Sister in the 90s, and we, and then, so actually when I ended up in the UK, there was a lot less women initially than what I was experiencing in San Francisco. And then I knew Storm, and I met Chemistry and Storm before Chemistry passed, but so I sort of had a mentor in Storm, and I knew her, and then eventually Flight and Cheekaboo and these other women, and we had a collective called Feline, and then later EQ50, so I've been part of all that.
Can you explain what EQ50 is?
EQ50 is like an equality network. I'm not part of the day-to-day anymore, but I was part of the initial group that formed EQ50, and we have created this network for mentorship and getting more women involved in drum and bass, which I think if you know anything about it, it's helped and it's had legs. But yeah, I think there is ageism for women. I think we're held to a different standard. I also have a show on Cool FM. This is just a little anecdote. I was talking to this lovely younger girl. She's in her late 20s. This was when we were doing like a Cool FM party, and she was even worried about ageism at 28. And I was like, well, what do you think of me? Like, if you think like 28's old, like, what do you? And I actually go into Cool sometimes, and I'm like, oh, all these guys think I'm a total grandma. And they're the producers and everybody, they're all very cool and very respectful. But I think just because my lived experience, I keep looking at Rapid, she's nodding, but like as a woman, you just kind of walk in feeling like you're held to a higher standard of perfectionism, let's say, be it as a DJ, as a producer, just appearance-wise, professional-wise, and I don't know, it's really hard to kind of quantify in like a 2-sentence answer.
Yeah.
It's just like this lived experience. But yeah, the ravers are great. And like I go to Sun and Bass every year, and like people are really supportive, and it's very all ages and stuff. But it's more of like a cultural thing, I think, within the industry.
And just also to add to that, I think like anecdotally, like for myself and my career, like some of the biggest opportunities I've been given have been from other women. And so I think it does make a massive difference to have, a much more diverse room, because then that room can let other people in the room, and, they see talent, or they see potential where maybe it wouldn't normally be seen. And I just kind of, if I think back, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, that was a woman. Oh, and that's another woman, and that's made a massive difference to me and like how I've kind of like progressed. And I just think it's a really, really important thing to do for us moving forward, to make sure that the scene continues to be diverse and interesting and develop and grow.
On the previous panel, we were talking about how jungle drum and bass was birthed in the UK sort of thing. And definitely in the 90s, it seemed like you had to be from the UK to sort of get into the scene almost. But did that change over time? And how was it for you, Ali Cat?
Yeah.
Did you feel like you had to move
obviously
here?
I came here in 99, so I was kind of a bit of an outlier, I suppose, at the time. And it was international in terms of like people were DJing all over the world. So that I wanted to point that out, because in some of the briefs it was sort of talking about maybe that wasn't the case, but drum and bass and jungle has been international for a long time. And I'm just being American, that was my lived experience. And we had our own scene, but we also had everybody coming out to play in San Francisco all the time. And but yeah, it wasn't, I think I came at a really good time because it was starting to become more international. Part of that was because of the internet and like Dogs on Acid and Breakbeat Science message board. But again, this was still pre-social media. So I was out in the trenches. I was going to like whatever record label and saying, can you give me promos, and walking around London and trying to get tunes to cut dub plates and going to Music House and all that stuff and trying to get on pirate radio. And whereas I guess now, like if you were kind of trying to get into it, it would just be a totally different process and stuff. But I just tried to kind of, do it.
In the 90s, it seemed like, especially in London, when I was going to all these drum bass things in midweek and stuff like Swerve and Speed and Movement and all that, that all the scene would turn out in the midweek, go and hang out, producers, DJs. But Bryan, when you went to play in Brazil, and what I'm talking about is when it's spreading the scene internationally and finding that there's this sort of scene in Brazil with this guy DJ Markey sort of leading it. And you went there and you came back to the UK and you were absolutely blown away and raving about it. And Markey came over to London, and there was this sort of like passageway set up between the UK and Brazil for drum and bass, etc. And this happened in other ways internationally with pockets in San Francisco and in Poland and wherever it is. How did it spread internationally from its UK sort of roots?
Well, like for Brazil, for instance, in Brazil, I'd say that especially Brazil, it grew because just like what we did here in the UK, and we used our influences to in the music and all that, you get the whether it be reggae, hip hop, R&B, or whatever. Brazil did the same thing. South America did the same thing, and they infused samba and all the Brazilian sounds, and so instantly the people could warm towards it, recognize it, feel it, because just like when we were listening to jungle and stuff, like if you were like I could go to my families back in the day, my brothers and people on the streets or whatever, and they would hear jungle and they would love it because it would have that shabarang sample in it, or that butcher sample in it, or that Roy Ayers sample in it. So straight away, you know what I mean, they could gravitate towards it, and that's what Brazil did. So by doing that, you know, it just tapped into the whole Brazilian vibe. All the people in Brazil just like love drum and bass because they could hear their music entwined in it, but was just like a new vibe of it. And so, yeah, there was times when we were going to Brazil and the whole of Brazil was into drum and bass, you know, the early times when Marky did Samba Sim and Patif and stuff like that. It was all over Brazil because it just embraced the Brazilian music. Now it's a complete different thing. What I've noticed now when I go back to Brazil, it's only in São Paulo because they've stripped down the music and they've taken away the Brazilian culture out of the music. And so it's not that popular like it used to be.
What those Brazilian guys, Marky Chief, XRS, when they were coming to the UK reciprocally, what did they bring to the scene?
They brought the sunshine, because it's like, I remember like going to Brazil. The first time I went to Brazil, and I said the story many times, and like I'm a special guest because they invited me out here because Patif wanted to do a night called Movement, and he came to Movement Bar Rumba night we used to do in London, and he wanted to do a night in Brazil, and we was like, no, not sure about that. We got to see what you're doing out there. So one of my partners, Ado, he went out there and he caught the vibe, and he said, yeah, Bryan, come over. They're doing things. It's a good vibe out here. So they set a night up for me, and usually. And I could talk for most DJs as well, especially like bigger DJs. If we go abroad or stuff like that, we're usually the main attraction. That's why they've flown us in, because we're the main attraction. It's all about us. And then they'll have some like residents, locals, they'll be warming up. And so like the night's supposed to be all about me, right? But this kid Marky had other things in mind, you get what I'm saying? He didn't read the script, right? And so he thought he'd come. But nah, he was just like, first I saw Marky and I was like, whoa, because we were all serious, you know, myself, Groove, Frost. When we DJ'd, we had mean faces on, right? And like, we didn't really interact with the crowd as into like fist pumping and not too, there was a thought, maybe that's just me, but there was a thought maybe if we smiled too much, we might kind of look a bit cheesy and like, not cool enough. So there was an attitude within us. And, you know, it was from the old jungle thing, that attitude, you get what I'm saying? And so we didn't smile too much. It wasn't intentionally. We didn't think, oh, right, I'm going to be frowny or whatever. But it was just a serious thing. We kind of like, and then when I saw Marky, he was there smiling to the crowd, waving to the crowd, fist pumping. And I'd never seen anything like that before, you get what I'm saying? So that was just something which I think he brought to drum and bass, which wasn't there before. You get what I'm saying? That expression towards the crowd that I never saw it that much before. Like DJs were kind of disconnected from, not disconnected, but were just more looking on the decks, and you'd read the crowd, but you weren't really embracing with them. And Marky found that way of connecting with people a bit more. So definitely they brought that kind. Even Patif, when you listen to Patif and you watch Patif, you're in the crowd, how can you not love him? You get what I'm saying? He's just like, just watching him DJ, and you just, that vibe just is infectious and it rubs off on you. You get what I'm saying?
And
So that's what they brought.
Did that enthusiasm literally rub off on you, and you sort of felt that you
not
lightened
just
up
me,
as well?
a lot of us, all of us, you get what I'm saying? Slowly, definitely, you know what I mean? It rubbed off on us, you get what I'm saying? And we began to embrace the crowd more, smile at the crowd more, and get more connection with the crowd.
And also at that same time, Marky and those guys, what you guys were doing down at Movement, brought some fun back into the production as well, right?
Definitely. Yeah, we didn't even started with that yet.
The start of Liquid Sound started back in those days.
That's what when I said they brought the sunshine.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? They brought the sunshine into the music, and it still stands out now, even although it's not samba based and all that, but it's still got that sunshine when you listen to Marky music and stuff like that. And you know, even just like when some of the other boys at Level 2 and Chat, when they're doing their stuff, you still feel that Brazilian funk.
Cool. We're talking about inclusivity as well, so we haven't got long left. But wanted to throw it out there to anyone who wants to chip in. Is the jungle drum bass scene inclusive towards the LGBTQ plus community also?
This is a great question. I can only obviously talk from my own experience. And I'm actually really good friends with one of my best friends. He started the first LGBTQ plus drum and bass night here in the UK. It goes by the name of Nathan X, and he runs a brand called Unorthodox. And he basically started it as a space for queer people to come together and enjoy drum and bass without kind of being hassled on the dance floor, just to fully be themselves, unapologetically, authentically. It's just that's actually how we met. I saw he was promoting it online, and I was like, this is sick. I want to come and be part of this. I want to come and watch what he's doing, make friends with him, and now he's one of my closest mates. And he's created a real beautiful space, which is great, but I feel like that needs to be integrated more into the wider drum and bass community, because the idea is to have those stages at the bigger events, not just to segregate the community to have their own separate events, but actually to integrate it back into the wider community. I definitely think they're not at a point yet where they've tried to do stages at larger scale events, but unfortunately there have been certain instances where they, haven't been felt fully safe. Some members, not everybody, but we're not at a place yet where I feel that everybody feels fully safe and comfortable, just from what I've been told. But on the whole, vast majority of people say, I feel like there's still lots of work to be done, basically, but I think it's going in the right direction. But I definitely think supporting parties like that is a big part of how we progress further and how we help support people in this beautiful community, because we wouldn't have drum and bass without the LGBT plus community, right? We wouldn't have our beautiful dance music scene without them. Amen to that. So, I definitely think it's about supporting queer artists as well. Also making more of a conscious effort on our lineups. I don't see enough queer artists supported on drum and bass lineups, as well as, it's not just about racial diversity and including more women, but I'd love to see more queer people on lineups, and encouraging more queer artists as well to make drum and bass, to feel more comfortable in our space, and just, encouraging that more.
Cool. Ali Cat, did you want to chip in as well?
Yeah, I just wanted, I love Nathan X, by the way, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Chikaboo. She's not here. She was going to come actually to support me, but she's not here. But she's one of the original jungle/D&B artists, full stop, fully out, LGBTQ person, Black woman. So and she's still in the circuit, and she has an amazing history. And I think a lot of times, because she's an MC, maybe people forget about her, but she's an amazing artist and MC, and I just wanted to give her a shout out. And she's also worked with Unorthodox as well, and they do a lot of stuff together, and is one of the main bosses at EQ50 as well. So I just wanted to give her a shout out. But I think sometimes with either women, it's getting better, or with any sort of diversity stuff, there were a lot of conversations of I don't know who to book for to do a diverse lineup, and I just think that's wild to me. But like, ask me or ask Cheekaboo or ask EQ50 or probably most of us here that are on panels, because there's plenty of people that are from all kinds of groups that can be booked and are talented and have something to offer. And like, I think in 2025 we just have to make sure that that's noticed, because I still think there's a little bit of maybe laziness of like, I don't even know who. Like, you can email me, I'll suggest people to you.
I think it's down to probably a bit of laziness, because I don't know many gay people on the D&B scene that much, you get what I'm saying? I'm not sure why, but like, I know Nathan X, we've got one of the baddest D&B producers on our label, Edward Oberon, you get what I'm saying? He's gay, and you know, when I see Edward, I just see Edward, you get what I'm saying? You know, I don't see a gay guy.
I think also when we were coming up, like, there wasn't a discourse for any of this. There wasn't a discourse for queerness. There wasn't a discourse about sexism. We didn't even have the language about sexism in the 90s. Like, so what we experienced, we didn't even understand what we were experiencing.
But like, you know, over the last few years, I'm seeing a big change, and a rapid change, you get what I'm saying, in the right direction as well, you get what I'm saying, because we're all learning, you get what I'm saying? It's all about learning. And if we don't know about these things, then we're just going to carry on doing what we're doing. But the more I hear about these things, and the more we start trying to learn about these people, and gays are fun. I love being around gay people. They are fun, right? And you know, gay parties are the wickedest parties as well, man. I mean, me and Frost, we used to go down to this place in Vauxhall, or we used to go to Fabric on a Sunday night, and they had sick parties. So how could anyone not like gay people, or whatever? But it's just about knowing more about them. You get what I'm saying? Because they're not in my horizon, they're not in my zone, I don't see them, you get what I'm saying? So when I'm doing events, or like lately now, you know, I didn't even know that she was gay, but I've been booking MC Emily for our gigs, and like, she is gay as well, so, you know what I mean? So, but I didn't even know that, I just look at talent, you get what I'm saying? And she was a talented MC, and I was like, you know what, that girl looks gangster, and I like her, you know what I mean? And so, you know what I mean, I just like her swagger and everything, and then, and I'm booking, and then like, oh, girl, she's gay, so what?
I feel like that's like such an amazing way to be booking lineups as well, as like, you know, looking at artists you love and talent you love and things that, you know, get you excited. And I think at the moment we're seeing, I think it's a bit of a hangover from the lockdowns, and, you know, how much kind of pressure there is on the live industry at the moment, which is very understandable. But I think a lot of like diverse lineups are seen as a risk, and like promoters are seeing artists that they don't know that can sell X amount of tickets as a risk. And actually the audience want to see a more diverse lineup. You know, people want to see these artists, people want to go to these like small clubs and discover people. Like, I think that's the beauty of this music as well. Like, there is so much kind of cross pollination of genres and styles that come into the drum and bass sound and the drum and bass world. That's one of the exciting things about being into this music, is that, you know, you can go and discover those artists, and a lot of the festival lineups and a lot of the big lineups, we're seeing the same names, and it's, you know, I think it is understandable because of where the live scene is at the moment, and the fear around that, and the fear around ticket sales. But also, how do we then find that balance of like getting those diverse new names out there? There has to be some give at some point to let that happen.
I think we're slowly getting there, Ruth, you get what I'm saying? Because like, there is, you know, I'll go out now and I'm like, I don't know any of these people on this lineup, because that's just how things are moving. So, you know, I go to a lot of parties and you're saying like, yeah, you know, it's a lot of the same names, but a lot of places I go now and it's a lot of new names. New names. I'm like, ooh. Sometimes I've got to say to the person, who's that? And this person's smashing, or this girl's killing the place, and I'm no idea who they are. So maybe we can be a bit impatient because you know the job that's need to be done. But trust me, man, for watching the scene and being in the scene for how much years now, I'm seeing rapid changes in the right direction as well.
Cool,
and people are more open-minded.
Brian, we've got to wind it up. I'm being told we've got to wind it up. Diversity is beautiful. Drum and bass is beautiful. Please give it up for the panelists today.